Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Rostermania was always going to follow the Esports World Cup, but the extent to which it's been popping off over the last 24 hours has been nothing short of insane. So many free agents, so much talent on the market, including very big changes at that. Toronto Ultra will be blowing up their team. Insight is going to go, potentially more to follow as well. Other big news as well though with Vegas Legion. They might be disappearing entirely, with Team Falcons finally getting their spot just after we got back from Saudi Arabia and Riyadh a couple of days ago. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. As always, I would greatly appreciate it. Let's just dive straight in, right? Because I got back from Riyadh a few hours ago. You can probably tell that I looked kind of tired, to be fair. I'm not going to lie. It's because I am. But I'll sleep well tonight, that's for sure. So I got back from Riyadh this morning, and when I checked my phone, I was like, wow, okay, hang on a second. There's been lots happening over the last few hours. As I was at the airport last night getting my flight, obviously, all the COD pros were there pretty much. Now, they weren't really getting my flight back to the UK, but a lot of the teams were flying on the same flight. It was interesting as well that I saw the Toronto guys. I didn't see CleanX there, but I saw, like, Insight and maybe CleanX is going back to Denmark or something with his family. I don't really know, speculation, obviously, but Scrap was there, Envoy was there, Insight was there, of course, getting the flight, I believe, the same flight back, which kind of awkward, maybe, given what we saw happen as well last night. And obviously, as JoeDeceives says, potential Rostermania in mid-air, because basically the whole COD community was on the same flight. Then we got the big announcements though. This was the first bombshell really hitting, and there were rumours going around the venue basically on Sunday night that Toronto were going to make a change. They'd bowed out of the tournament earlier on in the quarterfinals on Saturday, and it was pretty well known that they weren't going to be sticking around. I made a take yesterday on the Dope Check show we did live from Riyadh that effectively they're not good enough to beat OpTic and FaZe. Now, okay, I need to clarify that take a little bit because, of course, Ultra did beat FaZe every time they played them on LAN this year. My perception is, though, that if you look at the season as a totality, Ultra won an event at the start of the season, New York Subliners won an event towards the end, but, you know, no fans, maybe a slightly more cheese event than usual. Every other event was won by either OpTic and FaZe, and it's, you know, no doubt in my mind that Ultra are not good enough right now to consistently beat both of those teams in to win championships. Right, sure, Ultra can beat FaZe, but if they were to beat FaZe at a tournament, would they beat OpTic as well at that tournament? You know, to me, that Ultra team with Envoy, Insight, CleanX and Scrappy is not good enough to be confident going into next year you're going to win champs. That, to me, is the point. If you're Scrap and if you're HyDra, are you confident going into next season you can win the World Championship? Because I don't think you can be with the current roster they have. So, for various reasons, maybe that, maybe others, Insight is going to be gone. Now, I don't know whether this is necessarily a player thing, especially because Scrappy actually retweeted this. Maybe that's no big surprise, it's his teammate, right? But if Scrappy was the one that effectively decided to drop him, would he then retweet his looking for a team tweet? It kind of seems like rubbing salt in the wounds, doesn't it? So this feels a bit more to me like the organisation, because last year there was drama about this. Toronto were going to blow up their team last year. Scrappy was going to be held hostage. That was the rumour anyway. Then they decided to run it back because Scrappy weren't going to be happy about it. This year it seems they're going to pull the trigger. So whether that's a team-led thing, which, like, I think they should make a change anyway, or whether this is an organizational-led thing, those are other questions. And I kind of more inclined to believe maybe the org was involved here, whoever's making the calls over there, because, you know, restricted free agent, looks like they're trying to get a bag for Insight somewhere or another. Who should be interested in Insight? I think many teams. If I'm Subliners, if I'm Cloud9, I would take Insight over Skyz. I personally think that's an upgrade, but is it enough of an upgrade if you keep Sib, Kismet and HyDra to be confident of winning champs? I'm not so sure that it is. So, you know, it's really fascinating what this means. And as Ronnie then says, don't expect Insight to be the only Ultra player to tweet out restricted free agent. So effectively expect more today. It's not going to be Scrappy, right? Well, at least they're not going to get rid of him voluntarily. He may, well, who knows what's going to happen at Toronto. The pieces, I'm sure, will be slotting into place over the coming weeks. But who else, right? Is it going to be Envoy? Is it going to be CleanX? Like, what's going on here? I guess time will only tell on that one. So we'll talk about that more in due course, but I think it kind of makes it pretty clear that we will at least have 9 teams making roster changes. I guess Thieves is potentially a question mark, and so are Cloud9. It might only end up being like 8 out of 12, but I would expect more than that. I'm expecting 10 teams to change, frankly, because, you know, I think OpTic and FaZe, the seasons they had, were just a level above what anyone else was really capable of. Minnesota Rocker, they let go of accuracy, so they confirmed that accuracy is gone. Now, can Lamar finesse another roster spot? Absolutely. This is what he does. I think he's capable of doing it. And would he still be a valuable asset to the league from a main AR perspective? I think that is definitely possible. The question is, for accuracy, really, is he best served now being a player, or is he best served moving into a coaching position? Because that's my feeling, that accuracy now, it's the perfect time with potentially teams like even the Subliners, but certainly Toronto, even Thieves, and even potentially OpTic, given what accuracy we think did for those guys during the World Championship. Well, he did do it for them during the World Championship winning run, and maybe there's some correlation between the fact that accuracy was then playing again at the Esports World Cup and therefore wasn't working with OpTic in the lead up to that tournament, and they don't play quite as well as at Champs. I don't know. My feeling is that accuracy would be a perfect coach for OpTic Texas. OpTic Gaming, as hopefully they get to be known, but it's probably still going to be OpTic Texas in the official CDL. So maybe it's time for accuracy to say, all right, you know what? Now is the time to step away, because, you know, the coaching opportunities for him will be there. But of course, you don't want to retire before you're absolutely done, of course. But I just don't see exactly where else accuracy could go and get an offer. There is one interesting team, though, we'll mention for you guys here in a couple of seconds. And that, of course, potentially replacing the Vegas Legion. Cobra, though, is deemed to be a player who will be joining Minnesota Rocker. So there's been talk, of course, about the French talent in the league, especially because Linz, clearly a talented player, not able to quite get the best out of him this year, Minnesota Rocker. The feeling is that Cobra, another French player that he has experience playing with Linz, potentially coming in there. And Jake Hell says he's heard about this for a long time. The Cobra's always been the target of Rocker, so apparently that is basically going to be happening. Slasher as well, of course, free agent, another player on that kind of main AR list. Clayser says the same thing. It's kind of funny because they have a nice little friendly back and forth here, but of course they are competing against each other at roster spots next season. There's only so many AR spots going around. I think Slasher should be a real top candidate this free agency period. I thought he did pretty okay this year on Boston, and clearly what happened there wasn't his fault. And generally speaking, on Treyarch titles, Slasher has been really good. Even on a pretty disastrous Thieves situation in Cold War, Slasher was still nice with the XM4. So in my opinion, Slasher should be a top candidate. If I'm Thieves, for example, I'm at least considering Slasher for Nastie. Just, you know, I love Nastie, but I think that it's something that you should at least contemplate, especially because JCap now going means that the drama that happened between Cap and Slasher during the Cold War season is no longer a problem, potentially, if Slasher was to go back to that organisation. But also, if I'm Thieves, I'm thinking, well, what are Toronto going to do? Because if CleanX becomes available, certainly if a guy like Envoy becomes available to maybe even return to the Thieves, that would be a real statement to make. And therefore, if you are a team like, let's say, the New York Subliners, and you're looking potentially at Thieves looking to make these moves, you might yourselves think, we need to get involved in the marketplace as well. Fame is a UFA. Of course, he was on Gorillas this season, but now he's been on Vegas at this event, and it obviously didn't go so well. Speaking of Vegas, Nero is a UFA, and so is Geo. Now, this is not true as it stands for Attach. I'm pretty sure they've extended Attach's contract here, which would put him in a real predicament, because I'm sure that he would like to go to a better team, but it looks like they have actually extended his 1+1, which is pretty rare for Vegas to do. Usually they decide to let everybody go so that they can re-sign them a couple of months later and don't have to pay them the salaries for the couple of months that they would pay them during the off-season. But Attach obviously is kind of a next level player and personality. That's why they might be interested. But if this Falcons stuff is true, then of course it's once again all bets are off in that sense. Quickly on the Ravens though, this was in some sense the big one though, really, because Beans, I'm pretty sure, was only contracted for just this event. We were discussing it on the watch party this weekend. Did Beans have a 1+1? Did he have a 2-week deal, right? Was it possible that they could re-sign Beans, or did he just sign a short-term contract replacing Clay so that he had all his options available for next year? That seems to be what he's done. And I do think that Beans' talent is absolutely undeniable. Everyone that watches him knows. And you look at the market with all the free agents we've just mentioned, there are so many talent on the market, and Beans is certainly up there among them. Now, is he inconsistent? Certainly this season, yes. Was his search and destroy somewhat lackluster? Yes. But is he a player that if you're looking to try and build a competitive force and you're thinking, okay, if we can get the best out of this guy consistently, he's absolutely one of the top candidates in the league that isn't already on a top 4 team. So I think it's pretty exciting for Beans, because I'm happy that he's not locked down on Ravens personally. I think he could get, and probably should get, a more compelling offer from elsewhere. Other teams in that kind of midfield area that are looking to rebuild. Again, even maybe a team like Thieves should think about it. Thieves are a pretty attractive situation, right? They've done very well at the end of the year. And if I'm Thieves, I really don't want to get rid of Nastie. And I'm certainly not sure there that Beans would really be a guaranteed upgrade. But at least, you know, from a consistency perspective and stuff like this. And also, you don't really want to mess, if you're Thieves, with some of the team culture and the chemistry, right? Like, you've built that up, you've had success with it. Do you want to throw it away to make a couple of changes? You probably need to try something if you're trying to win a championship, so that's why expectations are quite critical. This, though, was surprising to me, because TJ also gets let go by the Ravens. I thought TJ had a great season, probably his best season in many a year. I would say even going back to, like, you know, Cold War, he was okay, but not great. MW19, he was pretty reasonable, but of course his team was terrible that year. Like, it's been a while since we've seen Tej have a good season like this. I thought a real comeback season for Tej, and I personally thought they'd keep him on because, look, they're going to extend Gwyn, sure, and maybe they think they can upgrade from Tej. But I don't know, given the situation, I think Tej might be quite happy with this. It seems like he's been let go, as in an unrestricted free agent, by the Ravens, so he can now explore his opportunities wherever he potentially likes, which is not a bad outcome, potentially, if other teams are going to give him a nice offer, and Ravens, for some reason, aren't interested in keeping him. To me, the Ravens team this event were pretty good. They just weren't quite consistent enough, and there's questions on whether Fellow is the right man, I would say, to lead up the team. The Gwyn TJ Beans thing I thought was pretty damn good, but definitely intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. And as Tej says, unrestricted free agent rights, they've completely let him go, not re-sign his deal. So what are Ravens cooking? I personally have no idea. I'm surprised they didn't keep TJ on, but I think that he's quite well fit really to go into next year and seriously make a bit of an impact. But before we close out the video, let's talk about the other big Rostermania drama on the Vegas Legion. Now, I'll just say this. There has been talks behind the scenes for, I would say, approaching 5 years on Falcons, or just the Saudis in general, getting involved in Call of Duty esports. It hasn't happened for the last 5 years for various reasons. There's even been talk about potentially, you know, vetoes coming into play, some of the organizations in the league not wanting Falcons involved, because I think they've tried basically every year to get a spot. This year it seems like it's going to happen, and at a fascinating time, because we just had the Esports World Cup in Saudi Arabia, and now the rumour has it, Team Falcons are going to come in and replace the Las Vegas Legion. So on some level, I don't think this is a massive surprise. Falcons, I think, were always going to get into the league eventually. We know the kind of budget these guys are working with. Legion were always going to go eventually. And obviously there's going to be some controversy over whether this is, you know, good or bad for the league in the longer term, what it means for, like, whether Falcons are trying to, like, host an event, what city are they going to be based in, because, you know, Vegas is a pretty haram city, like, let's be real. So I don't think they're going to be calling it Vegas. Yeah, it is going to be the Riyadh Falcons. Can they do that? And if they do, are they hosting a major there? Like, I don't know. If this comes true, big questions to be raised on that. But also big questions, what sort of money are these guys going to spend? I was mentioning this on the show the other day. If Falcons were to get a spot, what do? Do they bring in their own guys, the guys they played with in this tournament? Xnid, obviously Roxas, Khalid and King of Body. And, you know, really of those four, I would say Xnid and probably Khalid were the most impressive to me. Maybe they form a team with those two +2, but the +2 might just be Scrappy and HyDra, right? Because they've got the budget to go out and do this type of stuff. I'm not going to mourn the loss of Vegas Legion, just straight up. Like, okay, you say what you want about Falcons coming in and the implications and everything, but Legion were just an atrocious organization. They never tried, contributed effectively nothing to the community. So there's no way I'm ever going to mourn their loss, regardless of which organization is going to come in to replace them. The question, though, is, if Falcons actually come in here, like, how willing will they be? JoeDeceives gives his perspective and says that it doesn't seem wise for them to come in and offer some crazy deals because you've got to make it sustainable. And sure, but you know, it's possible. Could they go to Simp? Could they go to Scump? I mean, again, it's not going to be Scump, but you know what I mean, right? Like, we have this environment now where a team is coming in, and maybe Falcons will take a year or two to really develop things, but we've seen what they've done in Counter-Strike. They're going out, they're trying to sign Nico, they're trying to sign Monassi, they're trying to sign all the top guys, and that's been their strategy in CS. Obviously, it's happened in Warzone as well. They signed Shifty's team, just the best team. I think they did basically the same thing for Apex as well. So that is a real potential spanner in the works here in Rostermania, right? Because if Vegas come in, or if Falcons come in for Vegas, and they say, hey, Scrap, hey, HyDra, we're willing to pay you this, and we're going to pay the buyout, we're going to form a team that, you know, is going to be a championship winner. Like, I think it's actually a really interesting prospect for the league, because you've got OpTic, you've got FaZe, you've got Toronto, you've got Cloud9, you've now got, of course, Thieves getting back into the mix, and now we've got another big player in the question. Obviously, there's debate on how serious they're going to take it initially, but in the medium to longer term, there's no way that Falcons are going to sit back and rest on their laurels and be happy having the worst team in the league. Like, they are going to try and get some big names on their roster, and it might happen as soon as in the next couple of weeks. Who knows what's happening there? Ghosty, by the way, I heard this as well during the weekend. Some sort of deal, I think, was re-signed during the last few weeks. So Ghosty will be a Thieves player next year, unless, as they say, Falcons come along and say, hey, Nadeshot, we can pay you $3 billion for Ghosty. And Nadeshot's going to be like, well, I suppose we can do that. Although there is reason to believe that possibly the Thieves team is going to stick it out, because in reply to this tweet, Joe, Nastie, and Kremp all replied the following, which I thought was pretty funny. And I don't know if they'd have done this if one of them knew that they were getting dropped off the team. But even if they don't know anything about it yet, I still think it's very plausible that Thieves do decide in the end that a change is not, I would say, necessary, but would be helpful if they want to take the next step, especially if Falcons are going to come along and actually make it seriously interesting. So that is your Rostermania update for this morning. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. You're going to make sure you do that. Take care, and I'll see you next time.